Hello and welcome to your second Inventor example. We're going to be modeling this elbow of piping. We're going to look at this dot here. The symbol here shows that we're looking at a center point, and we see that we have the radius labeled as well. This is a 90-degree elbow right here. We see that that's only a portion of it, so we are going to have to add little end pieces to that to extend the length upward and to the side. Let's start with a sketch on our XY plane. And we're going to sketch that path, that path of that curve of that elbow. Now, if we do an arc of that set radius, we could do a circle and we could trim some things. First, let's make sure our units are set right. Get into millimeters now. Let's get back to our sketch environment and our arc. We're going to use our center point as the point of interest of our arc, or the center point of our arc. And we're going to use the two endpoints of that being along the negative y-axis and along the positive x-axis. Let's type in our appropriate length to get that constraint applied there. And let's set our 90 degrees. Let's add in those little additional lengths at the end. Now those are, if we pay attention to where our center lines are, there is overhang beyond that. So we want to make sure we consider that when we consider the whole path of it's going to be a sweep feature. That's what it's called. What we're going to use to get that profile, that length of the pipe. We're going to add a plane. Now this is the profile of that sweep. We're adding a plane normal to this curve, meaning that the plane and the curve will meet perpendicularly wherever they meet. That's how you define that plane. Now let's start a sketch using that plane. And now this sketch is going to be the profile of that sweep feature we're about to do. So before I get carried away with that, let's highlight the additional lengths that come up to what we're adding up. Note that it does not include the plates here. It only includes that hollow path that we're traveling through. I always struggle when picking colors because I know color blindness affects certain combinations, but I'm not totally aware on what they are. I do need to educate myself on that. So let's pick another color and let's highlight the profile that we're going to be adding. So the diameter of the profile is at 97 millimeters. Let's go to our main face, select our center point to be the center point of our path, and set our appropriate diameter. Now we see both the path and the profile face. We can select both of these things. The profile should be selected automatically, especially if that's the last thing you put down. And now we can select the path, which will select the tube, and have that tube travel along, have the profile travel along the length of the tube. The next thing we're going to have to do is hollow this out. We want to get rid of that center area. We're going to use the shell function to do this. When you use that, you should see that hollow tube of red in the middle saying you're getting rid of that. We're also going to select the faces that we want to remove. Click Remove Faces and then select the faces to be removed. The next thing we'll do is get ready to add the plates on the side. We're lucky in that a lot of the features are matching here. So the outer diameter is 225 millimeters, and the thickness we see over here is 25 millimeters. Let's start another sketch on the face of the end of our tube. or what we have so far, tuber pipe. The inner diameter here is 65. That matches the inner diameter of our tube. So we should see that those snap together. Let's now go ahead and add that outer diameter here. And we now see the outline of our plate. From this perspective, we want to extrude toward the camera. In other words, we don't want to extrude so we're overlapping material that we already had. Again, this extrusion distance is 25 millimeters. Extrude by 25 millimeters and hit OK. Let's go back to our drawing and take a look at the top view and confirm that the details here are the same. The dimensions for the top plate, the plate on the top view, are the same on that side plate. Let's add that inner diameter. Let's add that outer diameter. Let's finish the sketch and let's extrude it. Again, extrude it away from the pipe that we already have. We see that our pipe is starting to come together. We're starting to see that broad shape is all there. So now let's look at the detail on the pipe plates, face plates. We see that there is this little, I'm going to call it a countersink type area. And that area is not as deep as the face itself. Remember, when we are doing sketches, we only want to sketch consistent extrusion distances. So for example, with this plate, that center hole is a different extrusion distance than the patterned holes that go around the circle that are used to connect the fitting to something else. So this one goes 22. This is also a different extrusion distance than the plate as a whole, which is why I couldn't just have that hole in the original sketch that was extruded to make the faceplate. So while the faceplate was extruded to 25, this hole is only going to be extruded to 22. The next feature we'll take a look at, we're going to highlight that in blue, and we're going to take a look at the circular pattern along the faceplates. So the diameter of the pattern itself is 185, so that's a circle, the center line where the circle center points hit. The diameter of each circle should be 20.5 though. So let's create a new face on our, let me change my view first. Then I'm going to add a new sketch to that face of that plate. First thing I'm going to do, so I'm still semi trying to avoid constraints just for us using consistent things. I'm going to go 185 to get that diameter of the pattern. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in to one of the points of the circle. So I'm going to choose that centermost point, centermost topmost point, and I'm going to add a circle with the appropriate diameter of 20.5. Let me get to the right spot. There is something that wants you to snap to it very close, so you have to be a little cautious with this one. Make sure you're not snapping to that yellow spot on the pipe behind it. Now, once I have that, it's easier to go ahead and create the pattern. There are 8 circles total. So I'm going to hit this circular pattern or the circular button under pattern. I'm going to select the circle as the geometry, little circle as the geometry, big circle as the axis. I'm going to change the number of circles that I want or the number of repeats of this pattern to be 8. Now I see that everything is there, everything I want and need to be there is there. I'm going to go ahead and delete this circle. If you were to ask somebody who uses very intricate things that like systems in CAD, usually you are going to want to use constraints. That's something that does depend on complexity, so we're focusing more beginner level. I'm going to select all of these to extrude, and I'm going to choose the opposite distance to extrude through that face. I want to be careful not to extrude through everything, or I will go through some of the pipe. So let's extrude to that face, and we'll see that those negative areas have been taken out. Take a look at our work before we go ahead and repeat the process on the top plate. We confirm that all of our dimensions there are the same, and so we can go ahead and repeat the same process up here. I'm going to cut out from speaking for a little bit to just let you watch and take in that process visually. Perfect. Now let's take a minute to admire your beautiful work here. Rotate around your object and make sure everything looks the way you would expect it to. Now going back to our diagram, let's see what we have and have not addressed here. It looks like we have taken care of nearly all of these dimensions except for this addition over here, this extra nipple and this inverted fillet. So let me grab let's go back to a yellow highlight, and I'm going to highlight that fillet, that inverted fillet. It has a radius of 16. So I want to select the fillet option, set the radius to 16 as per my drawing. I forgot for a moment right there. Set the radius to 16, and I'm going to select the edge that I want to fillet. That's this edge right here. Now you'll notice it looks really different than the drawing. Our drawing has an inverted fillet, which is like a bubble out, versus the standard fillet, which is a bubble in. Bubble in meaning like a softening, bubble out meaning like you have that extra connection, mechanical connection, physical connection point there. So the next thing we're going to need to do is add in this nipple feature. So let's grab our red highlight, and we'll notice that it is an offset of 175 away from this first plate. So let's go add a plane at an offset, select the face we want to offset from, make sure we're offsetting in the appropriate distance. You'll see that little orange arrow there, and we want to offset to 175. So let me type in that value here, hit OK, and I'll see that plane there. Now, because I created that plane based off of that circle, the center point of my plane and the center point of that circle should align. That's perfect because I want the center point of my nipple to align with the center point of my main flow. So let's go ahead and add in this piece. Let's create a sketch on our new plane. We're going to focus in on that origin point. Again, this plane is centering on the same point as the center of the circle we're basing it off of, or the face we're basing it off of. So let's create a circle with a center at the origin here with our 50 diameter as per our drawing. We're going to select that face and we're going to extrude to another face in this case, that face being the pipe. This is a great way to get a full connection along a curve. If you extruded a distance, we might have either not hit the pipe completely or gone into that hollow area. This is a great way to secure that connection. Now I'm going to go in and hide this plane just to make things more professional and easier to see using that visibility option. Now that we have the base of our nipple, the rest of it should be a little easier and things that you're a little more familiar with from our last example. We're going to add in this hole here. We want a countersink of 24 at a depth of 28, and the remainder will be 20 through the length of the rest of the pipe. Again, this is all in millimeters. Everything I'm talking about is in millimeters. So I'm going to set that appropriately here, but what I'm going to realize in just a minute is I'm going to have a point that I can base this off of. So what I can do is either turn on the sketch that created this plane right here, this face right here, and that'll give me a point that I can snap to so that I can have the center of my hole line up with the center point of that circle. So I turn that back on by that same visibility feature. Now let me go back in and set these values again, 24, 28, and 20. I'm going to select the point I want to be the center point of my hole. That's going to be that center point of the sketch that I created previously. And I am going to go through all because it's going to mesh into the main hole of the pipe or the main pathway of the pipe. Let's change our visibility so I can see this a little bit better, and let's hit OK. You can see straight through the pipe there now. If we change our visual style, we'll be able to look at things a little bit differently, but you should be able to see everything that you need here. One last thing is to turn that visibility of that sketch back off just for professionalism. I start showing off a little bit here, but I do go back and do that. That being said, I'm going to turn on some music, take some time to enjoy your own work, and I will see you all soon. Thank you.